back to our channel. We are in chapter 50 from our guidance, that is valvular heart disease. So let us start as usual with our important glossary terms. So the first one is phonocardiogram. We already seen this in our beginning cardiac physiology. So phonocardiogram is nothing but it's a recording of heart sound mainly by using a microscope which is specially designed to detect the low frequency sound when applied to the chest wall. So heart murmurs are like abnormal heart sounds. So all those we can't, some heart sounds we can hear with our ears, but sometimes we can't hear them. So in that case we use this special kind of instruments like phonocardiogram to listen those kind of heart sounds, especially the low frequency sounds. So next, coming to rheumatic heart disease. So it is an autoimmune disease, that is, autoimmune means our own immune system acts on our body's tissues. So autoimmune disease affecting the valves of the heart, and that follows a sore throat with group A hemolytic streptococci. This is already, we already studied it in our microbiology from second year, right? So this is group A hemolytic streptococci which causes a sore throat. At the same time it also affects our valves of the heart, like it our body produces antibody against our own tissue cells. So in that case it acts on the valves of the heart, causing an autoimmune disease. So this is a rheumatic heart disease. Next, coming to valvular incompetence, the valves that are leaky following a disease. So leaky means valves are open so that they are allowing the flow easily, so it is leaky, and that allow the backflow of blood when the valve should normally be closed. So this is valve incompetence, means it is neither going to stop the flow or nor going to stop the backflow. Like now the valve is like completely open, so the now blood can easily move from atria into the ventricle in one side direction, or from ventricle to atria in the backward direction. So in both directions they can move easily. So this is an abnormality. And next, coming to valvular stenosis. So valves that are extra tight following a disease and that open with difficulty and increased pressure. So here you can see in valvular incompetence they are freely open and they are leaky, but here it is reverse. Stenosis means they are tightly bound with each other, so that only some amount of blood may enter into the ventricle from atria. So and also backflow is hard in this case because they're like stenosed so tightly, so that you can see there is also increase in pressure in the walls of the heart. So you can see valves that are extra tight following a disease and that open with difficulty and increased pressure. So now let us go into our topic. So we know normally heart sound, that is lub and dub. So this lub actually refers to the first heart sound. So how first heart sound comes, let us find out. So mainly due to the closure of AV valves. Here AV means atrioventricular valves. So what are the atrioventricular valves? They are mainly like mitral valve on the left side, and on the right side we have tricuspid valve. So because of their closure, always remember that because of closing of valves only we get the sound. So this, the closure of AV valves lead to formation of sound lub, that is the first heart sound. So this is also a sign of beginning of systole, because when the AV valve, the mitral valve closes, then the ventricle starts its systole like contraction. So valves at the end of systole, so beginning of systole, valves at the end of systole. So next, coming to dub. Dub is a closure of semilunar valves. We know the semilunar valves are mainly the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve. So closure of these valves lead to formation of a sound called dub, that is the second heart sound. So these are the basics, the normal first heart and second heart sound, how they are formed. And now let us see the normal pumping cycle of heart, which begins when AV valves close at the onset of ventricular systole. So normally in the pumping cycle of heart, it begins with AV valves closure and onset of ventricular systole, because as AV valves close, ventricle contract. After the ventricle contraction, large amount of blood ejects into the aorta. So this is a normal process. So now let us see what are the main causes of heart sound. So the vibration of taut valves after the closure, along with vibration of adjacent walls of the heart, and also the major vessels around the heart. So actually valves are like they're bound to even the papillary muscles by means of chorda tendineae. Chorda tendineae are the also called as the strings of the heart. So actually they are taut, means they are very strictly hold by this papillary muscle by means of chorda tendineae. So whenever they close, they give a lot of sound, like when a rubber band stretch and comes back, a lot of sound comes. In the same way, they cause a vibration in the heart, not only in that valves and also in surrounding tissue and also in the major vessels which are around it. So because of this only we can hear that heart sound easily. So elastic tautness of chorda tendineae and the valves causes the back surging blood to bounce forward again into the respective ventricle. So these vibrations pass to adjacent chest wall and they are mainly heard as a sound by the stethoscope. So the duration of each arch sound is more than 0.10 second, with first heart sound about 0.14 second and about 0.11 second. So first heart sound is higher, you can see 0.14 second, whereas second heart sound is like only 0.11 second. Why? Because the short reason, why the second heart sound is short, the reason is the semilunar valves are more taut than the AV valves. So this is the reason. Second heart sound comes because of closure of semilunar valves, right? So when the semilunar valves are closing, they're less taut, means they're not, no, they're more elastic, more taut. Taut means here it refers to elastic nature. Semilunar valves are more elastic in nature, so they close very fast so that the time is slow. Whereas you can see the AV valves, that is atrioventricular valves, close somewhat late. So just like only 3 seconds difference between both. So then AV valves, so the vibrate for the short time. So the second heart sound with a higher frequency than the first heart sound. This is very important. Second heart sound is having higher frequency than first heart sound because they are having more taut in nature, means they are more elastic in nature. So the reason is, first one, the tautness of semilunar valve in comparison with the much less taut of AV valves, and the second reason is greater elastic coefficient of taut. So you can see the greater elastic coefficient of taut atrial walls that provide the principal vibrating chambers for the second heart sound in comparison with the much looser, so less elastic ventricular chambers that provide the vibrating system for the first heart sound. So actually why we can see that more frequency and more elastic tautness is because of this, mainly dependent on the semilunar valves tautness. As they are having more elastic in nature, they come with higher frequency, so that the shorter time like only just 0.11 second. So now let us see how the third heart sound forms. So the third heart sound mainly form at the beginning of middle of third of diastole. So what is this? We'll try to understand. So actually this third heart sound is weak. Rumbling sound is heard at the beginning of the middle third of diastole. Middle third of diastole means 2/3 of diastole. So in the diastole mainly we can get this third heart sound. Diastole means the relaxing of, mainly here we are talking about ventricle because ventricle is only responsible to produce this cardiac output. So mainly in the ventricular diastole we listen this third heart sound. So oscillation of blood back and forth between the walls of ventricles initiated by the inrushing blood from the atria. So actually why this sound comes is because of the blood which is coming from the atria to the ventricle. In the diastole only it's a filling phase of a ventricle, so the blood comes from the atria to ventricle. So because of that turbulence of blood flow we are getting this third heart sound. So because in early part of diastole the ventricles are not filled insufficiently to create even the small amount of elastic tension which is necessary for reverberation. So that's why here it is mentioned as the third heart sound comes at the beginning of middle third of diastole, not at the beginning, because in the beginning still ventricle is in filling stage, at that time you'll not get that sound. So with ear we can't hear because this kind of third sound is very low frequency, but it can be heard with the help of phonocardiogram. So hence the phonocardiograms are used, because those sounds which are of low frequency they can't be heard properly. So the third heart sound is normal in children, in adolescents and also in the young adults, but it generally indicates the systolic heart failure in the case of older people. So this is very important. Third heart sound is normal only in children and adolescents and young adults, but it is not normal in the case of adults, we may suspect, if the third heart sound is present in adults, we may suspect the systolic heart failure in older people. Systolic heart failure means here mainly we are referring to the ventricular systolic heart failure. So ventricular systolic heart failure means the ventricle is not able to pump enough cardiac output, so that there will be decreased cardiac output in the case of this problem whenever there is third heart sound heard in adults. Next, let us see the atrial contraction. So actually, atrial contraction gives us the fourth heart sound. Atria means right atrium, left atrium, right? When they are contracting, that is atrial systole. Also, you can see they can give rise to fourth heart sound. So it may be recorded sometimes in phonocardiogram, but not heard in stethoscope sometimes. So because of its low frequency, usually only 220 cycles per second or less than that also. So mainly this is caused by inrush of blood from atria to ventricle rapidly. So even third heart sound is because of the blood rushing from atria to ventricle, but it is heard in the middle of the diastole. But here you can see an atrial contraction. This is in the systole. The initial part where the atrial blood is going into the ventricle rapidly, that gives us the fourth heart sound. So it is mainly heard in people with low ventricular wall compliance. Compliance means the ability to store the blood, right? So mainly heard in people where their ventricle size is somewhat small and they don't have that much compliance to hold the blood, and also increase in resistance to ventricular filling. Whenever there is higher resistance in ventricle, even then you may heard this the fourth heart sound. So example, fourth heart sound is often heard in older patients with left ventricular hypertrophy. So always remember, third heart sound, it is also heard in adults in the case of systolic heart failure, whereas fourth heart sound is also heard in adults, but in the case of left ventricular hypertrophy. So when the left ventricle undergoes hypertrophy, when the workload is very much high, or when the blood pressure is very high, or when the blood volume coming from the atria is very high, in that case the ventricle will become hypertrophic, that is stiffened and also very much larger, so that it has lower compliance, and because of that only we will hear this fourth heart sound. Now let us see the chest surface area for auscultation of normal heart sounds. So where we usually find out these heart sounds is with the stethoscope. We listen the sounds, and this is called as auscultation. So we may hear the sound at aortic area, which is upward along the aorta. So I will show this area so that you can clearly understand what I'm saying. So you can see this is the aortic area over here. So this is one of the auscultatory point where you can see these heart sounds, that is upward along the aorta, because this is aorta, right? Upward it is the aortic area because of sound transmission up the aorta and pulmonic area. So next we have the pulmonic area. You can see this is the pulmonic area is upward along the pulmonary artery and tricuspid area after the right ventricle. So you can see this is a tricuspid area. Here the right ventricle lies, and the mitral area at the apex of left ventricle. So normally we know mitral means it should be in between our left atrium and left ventricle, but mitral area is towards the apex of the left ventricle. So these are the mainly four areas where we usually put our stethoscope and auscultate the heart sounds. So remember, aortic area up along the aorta, pulmonic area up along the pulmonary artery, tricuspid area towards the right ventricle, mitral area towards the apex of left ventricle. So these are the main four areas where we put our stethoscope and auscultate our heart sounds. So let us see somewhat detail about phonocardiogram. So the microphone, which is specially designed to detect the low frequency sound, and it is placed on the chest, and the heart sounds can be amplified and recorded by high speed recording apparatus. Recording is called phonocardiogram, and the heart sound appear as waves. So you can see here in this diagram these waves are nothing but the heart sounds. So like this, the waves are formed in the case of our phonocardiogram. And third and atrial waves are at low rumble, means third heart sound and atrial waves, they are like low rumble, means at low frequency. Even though we are hearing it with phonocardiogram, they are like low waves. And atrial heart sound can be recorded in perhaps one fourth of all people. So it means that atrial heart sound is easy to find out, easy to get from the phonocardiogram. So here you can see, for example, in this diagram you can see phonocardiogram from normal and abnormal heart. So you can see here how the waves are formed. This is the picture where you can find out the waves of the heart. So now let us moving on to our valvular lesions. So valvular lesions means, mainly on right side we have our tricuspid valve, on left side we have our mitral valve. These are actually our retroventricular valves. And coming to aorta we have aortic valve, and coming to pulmonary artery on left side we have pulmonary valve. So these are the semilunar valves. So we have mainly two types of valves, atrioventricular valve and semilunar valves. So what happens if the lesions, if there is any abnormality, what happens? Let us see now. So first let us start with, you can see here the rheumatic valvular lesion. In introduction glossary we already seen it is an autoimmune disease. So let us start. So the greatest number of valvular lesion mainly result from rheumatic fever. So what is this rheumatic fever? It's actually autoimmune disease where the heart valves are damaged or destroyed and initiated mainly by, important as we have said, this is a fever means it is caused by some toxin like extragenous agent, like here you can see the streptococcal toxin, which is also causing a sore throat. Mainly it is caused by the group A type of hemolytic streptococci, and because of their toxins the human reticuloendothelial cells try to produce the antibodies. But now what these antibodies do is they attack with the streptococcus and also on our own body tissues. So because of this it is causing a severe immunological damage, and this reaction continue as long as the antibody persists in the blood, like about 1 year or more. So you can see it is a very major problem because for about 1 year our own antibodies are acting on our own cells and destroying them. So it's a very dangerous situation. It may also act on a valve of a heart. So especially uh, in rheumatic fever there are large hemorrhagic, fibrinous, hemorrhagic means a lot of blood loss, fibrinous, bulbous lesions growing along the inflamed edges of heart valves. So this is the main problem in rheumatic fever. What happens? There are hemorrhagic means that bloody, leaky, fibrinous, fibrous and bulbous lesions like bulb-like lesions are formed on the inflamed edges, even though the valves are inflamed because of antibody antigen reaction over there. And finally they are affecting our heart valves. So if the mitral valve is damaged more, then next the aortic valve may damage. And on the right side the valves are less affected because low pressure stress act on these valves. So because whenever there is high pressure only towards that side morely these toxins are going, like these antibodies are going and acting on this. So on right side it has less chance. So when compared with left side, so left side we have our mitral valve and aortic valve. So these are mostly affected. So you can see first the mitral valve may damage and next it may also reach into the aortic valve. So scarring of valves. Now let us see the scarring of valves. What is scar? What is that? Let us see. So the lesions of acute rheumatic fever occur on adjacent valve leaflets simultaneously. So the edges of leaflets become stuck together, stuck. By weeks, months, or years later, these lesions become scar tissue and permanently fusing the portion of adjacent valve leaflets, also free edges of leaflets, which are normally filmy and free flapping, often become solid and scarred masses. So scarring is nothing but like permanent attachment. So if I get that diagram, I'll show you. So for example in this diagram let us see, normally this is our aorta, right? So here we may have valves, and in between atrium, left atrium and left ventricle, we have these are the valves, right? These are attached by means of chorda tendineae to our papillary muscles, right? So in this rheumatic fever there is scarring because of permanent scarring. Because of that these valves are stuck like this with our with our walls of heart. So because of this trucking nature you can understand, if it is open then it will be continuously open, or it is scarred in a closed position then it is continuously closed. So in either case it is a problem. If it is continuously closed the blood from atria may not come here, and this may backflow into our lungs and may cause acute pulmonary edema, all those conditions. If this is permanently open also, you may know the blood always comes here, and during ventricular systole the blood may can't go into the aorta efficiently because the backflow may be present, like from left ventricle the blood may regurgitate into the left atrium. So these are the problems mainly if the scarring takes place. So let us go again back into our discussion. So we can see here the valve leaflets adhere and blood can't flow by them. So if they are destroyed, more backflow may, yeah, that's what we discussed, happen, and regurgitation may takes place if they are always open. So stenosis usually does not occur without coexistence of at least some degree of regurgitation and vice versa. So what they say is stenosis means like it is completely closed, the valve is completely closed, but it may not occur like because some degree of regurgitation may also be present. Completely the valve never undergoes stenosis, some small hole, some narrow pathway will be present for the regurgitation also. So that is what they're explaining. So other causes for this valve stenosis, all this is stenosis or lack of one or more leaflets of a valve. So sometimes only one valve leaflet may be present and other may be absent, and sometimes stenosis. And also a valve also occurs occasionally as a congenital defect, or complete lack of leaflets is also rare sometimes, like both leaflets are absent. And congenital stenosis is more common. So among all those, the congenital stenosis, congenital means in the birth time, from the birth time only, because of abnormality there is stenosis, means the valves you can see like here, they're completely closed by giving a narrow space for some blood flow. So like that there may be some congenital abnormalities also involved. Now let us come on to our heart murmurs caused by valvular lesions. So what are these murmurs? Let us see. So murmurs is an abnormal heart sound. When abnormalities of valves are present, mainly these murmurs are heard. So systolic murmurs of aortic stenosis. Let us see about this now. So in this diagram you can see the aortic stenosis graph here. This is B, which is referring to our aortic stenosis. So what is aortic stenosis? In aorta the valve is present, right? That valve is somewhat partially closed. So because of this closure, what happens? Mainly it is affecting our systole. You can see this is the systole, this is the diastole, right? So in aortic stenosis, mainly the systole is getting affected when compared with diastole. So why? Let us find out this. So you can see, hence the heading is systolic murmur of aortic stenosis, because systole is mainly affected. So the resistance to ejection, there is resistance to ejection, means you can understand the aorta is closed. Now the blood from the left ventricle can't pump against it, so it is resistance to ejection. So the blood pressure of left ventricle increases like about 300 milligrams of mercury. Why increases? Because now it need to put lot of pressure to eject, because the aortic valve is stenosed, but aortic pressure is normal. So this is important. Aortic pressure is normal because just its valve is stenosed, its blood flow is continuous, so it doesn't have any problem. But the main problem in aortic stenosis goes to our left ventricle, because it need to eject lot of blood with a higher pressure. Already as this is stenosed, it puts more pressure, like about 300 millimeters of mercury. So there is like nozzle effect created during systole by blood jetting increased velocity by small opening. This causes severe turbulence of blood in the root of aorta. So actually what happens, as I said, in stenosis never it may completely block, some narrow space may be left behind. So in that narrow space only you can understand, when we open some tap and we are allowing that blood flow by means of a narrow pipe, you can understand, you can get some nozzle like sounds because of high pressure and moving through a narrow hole. Then there is high turbulence in the case of root of aorta. So turbulent blood against the aortic wall causes the vibration, increased lot of vibration. Loud murmurs are heard and transmitted to the thoracic aorta, large arteries of neck, and the sound is very harsh in persons with severe stenosis, and also could be heard several feet away from the patient, and also heard at the upper chest and lower neck by hand. This is by hand. This is called thrill. So actually in this patients it is like very serious. If the stenosis is like very serious, like if stenosis is serious, means the passageway will be very narrow. Then with high blood pressure, the blood is flowing through this, now with a high sound. If you can't you can hear that sound just directly. If the person is somewhat far away from you, can hear that sounds, and also you can hear with your hand. If you are hearing that sound as thrill, this phenomena is called as thrill. You should remember this. So till this we'll stop our part 1, and we'll next start our part 2, very interesting chapter.